warm welcome back from that very interesting animated discussion that you had with two guests, numbers, the law, and so on. I guess we are going to have some more of that in just a moment. But before we go on, we want to just quickly run through these states through which we're having elections tomorrow. And this time we'll just quickly run through those. In Bauchi, one local government with 1,111 voters is expected to have elections tomorrow. In Bayelsa, there are 3 local government areas with 58,000 plus voters. In Benue, there are 9 local governments with more than 91,000 voters. In Ebonyi, there are 3 local governments with 45,905 voters, while in Edo State, there's 1 local government with 6,764 voters. In Ekiti State, there's 1 local government with 2,244 voters, while in Kaduna, there's 1 local government as well with more than 7,500 voters. In Adamawa, which was part of the subject of Sheun's interview just before the break, there are 2 local government areas with almost 50,000 voters involved in tomorrow's exercise, while in Kano, there is more than 40,000 voters involved in 1 local government area. In Kogi, 3 local governments with 24,637 voters are involved, while in Imo, 5 local governments with more than 100,000 voters are involved. In Lagos State, where we are, 1 local government, Ibejuleki, which we've been talking about for quite a while, more than 12,711 voters are involved, while in Nasarawa, 4 local governments. Osun has 1 local government, Plateau, 1 local government, Sokoto, 2 local governments, and Taraba as well has 2 local governments. In the Federal Capital Territory, 4 local government areas with almost 30,000 voters are involved.
Yeah, I think it would just talk about Kano.
There is a bit of controversy around the Kano because some information has that there's 1 local government area that's having elections, but then in some other information has that there are 29 local government areas having elections.
Yes, out of 44.
In Kano, out of 44. So
29. That is 29.
That's 29
instead of 1.
Okay, 29 local governments out of 44. That's in Kano.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's how they come up to 40,821 voters in those local governments. Yes.
That's in fact well, at this point, I'm hearing that we ought to be going to Kano itself.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe we'll just go straight to our guests.
I think what we should actually do is just look at what's on the screen there, kind of what Sheun was talking about earlier about the different states. So just in case there was any controversy there, Kano is the one we were correcting with 29. We've got 76 in terms of the number of RAs, and then the number of PUs for Kano is 28. That's polling units.
Registration areas.
Registration areas. Okay. That's how they got the rats. So registration area centers, exactly.
Yes,
and
but the polling units, I think, is 208.
And 208, that's right.
More than 120,000.
Yes, and for Adamawa, local government areas 14, number of RAs 28, and then 44 polling units, and then over 40,000 voters. So this is just what we're trying to do to educate you, just in case you're in any of those areas against tomorrow.
Then we'll go on to the next page on this slide. Let's see what
other states are involved in this?
Again, okay, so now there's polling.
Adama. And then we have Bauchi, Bayelsa, Ebonyi, Benue, Edo, Ekiti, Imo, Kaduna, Kano, we've also mentioned, Kogi, Lagos, Ibejuleki residents, that's for you, Nasarawa, Osun, Plateau, Sokoto, Taraba, and then in some FCT area councils, that's in Abuja. Interesting, they have about 29,796 voters in that area.
In the FCT alone?
That's right.
That's quite a bit. Sokoto has more than 75,000 voters expected to participate in tomorrow's exercise. I wonder if we can take our guests now.
Yeah, indeed, I hope they'll come in real quick because we'll need to get some clarifications. Especially, Mr. Ogunye did not talk about that matter if the voters did not turn up. He did. I think he did, but he did it the way lawyers do. He just skirted around.
He said, let's wait and see, which we all know already. Yes,
the way lawyers do.
Okay.
But maybe we can go to our Abuja studios. where we are expecting to be joined by Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi, and then, of course, Mr. Shamsuddin Yusuf, Senior Program Manager, the Center for Democracy and Development, as well as Mr. Kabir Adamu, who is a security expert. I don't know if we can see them now. Okay, there they are. I think this is Kabir Adamu, as well as Shamsuddin Yusuf, who is the Senior Program Manager of the CDD. Both of you are welcome to the supplementary elections. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Let me start straight away with you. The Senior Program Manager of the CDD, Mr. Shamsuddin Yusuf. What do you make about these supplementary elections tomorrow? Do you think that enough has been done to make the particular voters who are involved, which is what we've been talking about earlier, aware that they will be participating in this exercise tomorrow?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say a lot have been done by the electoral umpire to inform people, or like, for example, in the 5 states where there will be a raw supplementary election for the governorship election, we have over 362,000 registered voters who are expected to participate in the elections. INEC at different state level will actually be convening stakeholders program meetings, bringing on board different political parties, bringing on board security agencies, bringing on board other civil society organizations, particularly the Observer Group, to have serious conversation around the logistics arrangement, as well as issues that are rising in the lead up to the election, particularly with regards to the issue about security, and as well as other issues, and making their positions known on the organization of the elections. I think with that, stakeholders are actually informed, particularly in the city centers in most of the states. But in some other local governments, I don't know how far INEC has actually been on ground to educate these people about some of the reasons why their votes were cancelled in the first place, and the reasons why they have to participate in tomorrow's elections. So I think to a large extent in most of the capital cities in some of the states, INEC have been convening stakeholders meetings to enlighten people about, about these elections. But most fundamentally is the issues with regards to the extent at which they were able to inform citizens in different locations on the arrangement for the elections.
Mr. Adamu, let me just come to you to ask, even this evening, you find that there's still a bit of uncertainty. Will the elections hold, won't they? That's in terms of people looking to say, are they going to hold in my area? Not will they hold. So in terms of security, how does that affect the security plan? For instance, if you've deployed to a particular state and then the court order comes, you can't now go again. So just looking at this week in the run-up to the elections tomorrow, how do you think that affects the plans they have for security?
Well, to the extent that we know that INEC has hosted the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security, where about 24 government agencies participated, and to the extent that we've heard from the IG of police, his deployment plan, as well as the military, to that extent, and we would say they seem to be a bit conscious and aware of where they are supposed to deploy their personnel to. However, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to me that the lessons from both the presidential and National Assembly, as well as the governorship and state assembly elections, have been learned. The mistakes, quote unquote, that we noticed. By the way, I also served as an observer in both elections, and so I speak with both, CAPs here as security expert, security risk analyst, and an observer. Those lessons, I don't think especially the security agencies have learned from that, and so I fear that we are going to see a lot of that during the supplementary elections. And what are these lessons? Lack of communication between the security agencies, them operating in silos and not the kind of synergy that I expect, absence of intelligence, and by intelligence I mean credible information that would allow action by these security agencies to prevent threats from affecting the electoral processes, then control by INEC itself. Let's remember that INEC is the chair of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security, and as far as the law stands today, it's supposed to exact that element of control. I've heard the narrative that it doesn't have the capacity to exert that control. So unfortunately, going into the supplementary elections, we're likely to see that challenge. What kind of audit functions would INEC exercise to ensure that even where there are infractions, they are corrected immediately, so that the ugly incident that we saw in Rivers, where we saw two security departments almost cocking their guns and shooting each other, if that repeats itself, what kind of corrective measures can be taken immediately to ensure that we return to normalcy? So that's sort of how I feel right now as we are approaching the supplementary elections.
You know, the INEC, in the aftermath of that election, INEC also talked about the fact that they've drawn a lot of lessons from the conduct of that election, both the presidential and the governorship election. So if you're saying that you're concerned that there's a likelihood that this same issues, no communication between the security agencies, might play out and INEC lacking some form of control or command, yeah, that should be the word, command over the security apparatus in the elections, then what do you think should be done? Is it not too late to even begin to talk about such concerns?
It's never too late to point out lapses. Part of the reasons why we hold this kind of discussions is to highlight them and to hope that INEC would listen and then take corrective measures. The functions of the various agencies within the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security, the Office of the National Security Advisor has the coordinating role. Perhaps the IG of police also has that function because it's the largest security department within that committee. But in spite of all these elements, the overall responsibility for electoral security management lies with INEC. Wherever we go to, we have to come back to that function. So the department in INEC that is supposed to supervise that and ensure that what we are promised is what we see tomorrow, unfortunately doesn't seem to either have that capacity or to even speak to Nigerians, to explain to Nigerians this is what its plan is rolling out tomorrow. I would have expected that at the beginning of this week, say on Monday, INEC would have come out to tell Nigerians that these are some elements of measures that we'll put in place in the locations where the supplementary elections would hold. As an example, we saw the police command in Kano, in the FCT, in Sokoto, releasing reports saying there will be restriction of movement. I see no reason why that shouldn't have been a coordinated function, where at some, like I said, at the beginning of the week, Nigerians would have been informed. That would allow you to plan. My job is security risk management. I support corporate organizations to manage their security. If I have that kind of information, it will help me, because I'll be able to plan ahead. We didn't get that, frankly. We're only getting it in piecemeal from the police, which shouldn't be the case. In the first place, why establish the Interagency Committee on Consultative Committee on Electoral Security if you are going to have this kind of piecemeal approach to security? So
now,
we need to speak on it
if I may come in here,
by the media and civil society organizations, so that at the end of the day, INEC will listen to this and take the necessary action.
You know, when you talk about the seeming uncoordinated approach towards restriction of movement here and there, there's some who would think that there's a chance that INEC is somewhat being distracted by all the many court cases and many calls here and there on them. So they might not exactly focus on, and then hoping that the security apparatus can get themselves together, not needing INEC to tell them, so to speak, what to do.
Yes, I've heard that narrative, and to an extent I agree. INEC is overwhelmed. Some of the responsibilities that we've put on it. At the beginning of the electoral cycle, we did risk management protocols, and we identified INEC's inability to manage the expectations of Nigerians as a risk factor. INEC didn't speak clearly to Nigerians, to tell Nigerians this is what we can do, and this is what we unfortunately won't be able to do. I've said it earlier on that the department in INEC that's supposed to be responsible for security hasn't been speaking to Nigerians. Even for us in the field, in the area of security, we've not been hearing from that department. I don't expect the chairman himself to carry out that responsibility. He has aides in terms of directors that are heading such departments that should be able to take charge. Having said that, I think it would be fair for me to mention that INEC has the latest tool in managing security, which is the the ESRM, Electoral Security Risk Management Tool. Anywhere in the world you go, that's the latest tool you get. So INEC has that, but why is it not using it to manage the kind of challenges that we've seen from the beginning of the electoral cycle till date? We're aware that over 500 people have died from the electoral cycle till date. That's not acceptable anywhere. So INEC is overwhelmed. Can it manage that issue? Yes. Empower, or rather, show more effort by the directors that are heading the several departments. I think the expectations that the chairman himself need to do everything is actually not fair. He's just one individual. It's the system, the institution that should be speaking, and we need to see more of that from the various departments. In this case, the security department in INEC.
Okay, Mr. Yusuf, let me bring it to you now. I mean, you heard Mr. Adamu there talk about the fact that he was a monitor, you know, in both elections, presidential and the governorship as well. And we know that the big L, logistics, kept coming up. Listening to the Air Force, and they had talked about the fact that they were called upon to airlift materials and etc., even though it was at the last minute, but that they've been able to do that. So will we see the polls opening at a uniform time tomorrow, and nobody will talk about having no stamp or no election officials arriving early? Can INEC finally get it right now?
Yeah, I think if we want to judge by the experience in the last governorship elections before the March 9th election, we would say that it's every likelihood that the elections start early in most of the polling units. This is quite manageable, and I think having recorded such improvements in the governorship election compared to the presidential and National Assembly election, they should be able to open. The Air Force has actually been helping in the distribution of sensitive materials in states like Taraba, Bauchi, and a few other states. I think with that, they should be able to open early tomorrow. But I think there are other issues that we need to consider when we want to look at early opening of polling units, because the experience in Osun State during the rerun election, governorship rerun election last year, is quite enlightening. We experienced quite high level of militarization, and as a result of harassment, obstruction of the observers, intimidation of voters, that often than not led to the polling unit actually opened early, but in terms of commencement of the accreditation of voting process was actually delayed because of these avoidable problems. And I think it's something that we need to critically look into. If we look at Kano, for example, some of our observers in the field already noted that distribution of sensitive materials to different local governments has actually started today. We also received similar report from Plateau State that the deployment of the NYC officers to different registration areas, as well as the distribution of sensitive materials to different rack centers has commenced. And with that, I'm sure the officials that are needed, as well as sensitive materials, as well as non-sensitive materials, would arrive most of the polling unit tomorrow. But most fundamental thing is to look at other issues like welfare that a lot of observers group raised in the last governorship election, and we remember the experience in Lagos and few other places where ad hoc officials protested, over non-payment of allowance. And I think these are some of the things that INEC need to take cognizance of, because if we look at the cancellation of elections, over voting, security concerns are very, very, very important. And I think these are some of the things, and you know that there is usually connection between building trust and confidence in the electoral system, as well as INEC started early, logistics problem that has been confronted with. I think in order to address some of these things, INEC needs to ensure that necessary logistic arrangement is put in place.
Now, we're going to take a break at this point, but when we come back, I'm going to address the two of you over the issue of possible apathy, which is the other big worry that appears to be, and that's linked to the issue of awareness. Mm-hmm. What could have been done, because that's basically what we're saying now, what could have been done to let the voters know that these elections are taking place tomorrow? Did INEC do it? And can we expect good turnout tomorrow, even given everything you've said? But that's after the break.